Hi.
Hi.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Maryan, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here and a little nervous.
Are you nervous? Why?
Because it's been a while since I've been on camera,
Okay.
and it's nervous in a good way,
Yeah.
not nervous in like a scary
good.
way.
You feel comfortable,
I
inshallah?
feel good.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
You look amazing.
Thank you so much.
Your skin is like, mashallah.
Thank you.
You
I
look good.
appreciate you.
So what brings you to Dallas? Because I know you're not from here originally.
Yup, I am originally from, Minnesota.
Okay, repping. She came prepared.
Very prideful. No,
Okay.
there's a game on tonight. I want to make
is that
sure
why?
people know which team I'm rooting for.
Okay, mashallah.
But yeah, what brought me here is for a while now I've been wanting to move to Texas.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure. Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Texas. Everything is so big in Texas.
Yeah.
That's what they say,
That's
right?
what they say, yeah.
So I just was so excited. I was like, I've never been to Dallas. I feel like there's a healthy population of like different types of people.
100%. Very
food,
diverse. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm going to give it a chance.
Okay.
I'm gonna
You've
give
been
it
here
a
for a
chance.
few days. How do you like it?
Oh my gosh. I love
Do you
it.
love it?
I love it. I found I feel like I found my tribe. I found great places to stay. Like when I come back, I had a list of apartments that I was considering moving to.
Yes.
What else? I've convinced my mom, which
Nice.
is the hardest person.
Listen, if you could get mom to relocate, like
Yes.
MVP right there.
No, at first, but I was like, maybe she wants to see me there on my own, and then she'll
First.
come.
She's
but
like,
now,
you test it out and then I'll come.
absolutely, and my sister too.
Yeah, mashallah.
Yep. So
Speaking of siblings, you have quite a few, mashallah, right?
yeah, yep. I have
Okay.
2 siblings on my
Okay.
mom's side, a few more on my dad's side.
Mashallah.
Yeah, and we're split. So I have my dad's family is from San Diego, and my mom's side is from Minneapolis.
Very cool, mashallah.
So yeah,
Yes.
2 younger sisters that are in Minnesota right now.
I love San Diego because some of my really good Somali friends are from San Diego.
Hey.
So I have a very special place in my heart for San
Yes.
Diego. Those sisters are so
I love
so
San
sweet.
Diego.
Yeah, it's
I
really
love
nice,
San Diego.
mashallah.
Yeah,
I need to go out and visit soon.
absolutely.
But yeah. Okay, so you and I don't
Mhm.
actually super know each other super well. I don't remember who followed who on Instagram, but it doesn't matter. Alhamdulillah, we've been connected.
I probably followed you first.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Okay. But you have
Yeah.
you have a much bigger following than I do, mashallah.
Yeah.
And I remember you had messaged me like, hey, I'm coming to Dallas. And I was so excited.
Yeah.
Because you have been such a sweetheart since, we've been connected on social media.
Thank you.
You've been so supportive. You've loved all my content. You comment on stuff. You
Yeah.
send me messages all the time.
Yeah.
And I had no idea about like your history on social media.
Yeah,
and,
you
like,
shared that with me.
yeah. And you have like this, I'm not on TikTok. I need to be on TikTok. I'm trying to
uh-huh.
eventually get there. I feel like the TikTok girlies are so much cooler than I am. And I
No, don't say that.
like content that does really good for me on
Yeah.
Instagram is terrible on TikTok. Like
Okay.
600,000 views on Instagram,
Mhm.
not even 1,000 on TikTok.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really bad.
No, I feel you, but I was gonna tell you, I also was one of the girlies that's borderline Gen Z. Like I'm not
Yeah.
Gen Z, but I'm like at the cuff of millennial.
Really?
So I tend to act more like millennial than I do Gen Z.
Okay.
So I see my sisters all the time. They're more on TikTok.
Yeah.
They're sharing TikToks with me. I'm like,
Mhm.
I might as well just figure this out.
Figure it out.
Right?
It's the way of the future. I really need to get
Yeah.
on board. So maybe inshallah after this you can like give me
Inshallah.
some
I got
tips.
you. I noticed when you post at night, it does better though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Overnight, you wake up, and then you see all the notifications. I'm
Yeah.
like, dang.
How did you get started? Because I think you said you were on Vine.
Vine. Yeah, that's where I got my little fame.
I was not on Vine like that. I think I was on there for like a few weeks and I didn't
Yes.
really it was a lot of funny videos, but
Mhm.
TikTok was the same thing for me. Like I lost so many hours of my life and I get nervous about that because I have so much stuff to do. I'm like, I can't be
Yep.
addicted to anything that takes me this far out.
Yeah.
So, but tell us how you got started with social media for
Yeah.
those who don't know you already.
Absolutely. So first, my name is Maryan, and I started my social media actually before Vine. There was an app called Keek.
See, you are OG, mashallah. I have no idea what
OG. And I mean, even before that, like YouTube is really where, like when the wave of YouTube started, when it just kicked off, I was like, I was 13 when I got access to YouTube, like
Mhm.
2007, 2008. And I just remember watching like all of these comedy content on there. Me and
Even
my
back
friends-
then?
Yeah, me and my friends, we didn't post anything, but
Okay.
we were just watching like what people would now call influencer or content creator. Those titles didn't exist back then, right?
Right.
So we were just dying, like watching skits, all of that. And I always wanted to have my own thing going, but I just didn't have the resources or the tools. Cause I mean, who's gonna shoot on a Nokia, right?
Right.
Like the
Girl, that snake game had me in a chokehold.
Okay.
Do you remember the snake game on the Nokia phones?
I think so. And
Yeah.
the Pac-Man and all of them.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely. And Tetris. Yup. I'm familiar because I also grew up in the era of, even though people had internet at home, the way we grew up, like we had to, if you wanted internet, you had to go to the library. So I had I had like a big fat back desktop, but there's no internet.
There's no internet, yeah.
And my mom thought if she bought the big back computer, Dell, that it would just come with internet.
Isn't that so funny?
It's crazy. So I became an expert at typing at 12.
You're a tech queen. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but that's one of the other things that I found out about you after we connected, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's in tech, and I love the tech girlies.
Absolutely.
Mashallah. Yeah. Okay, so you were watching on YouTube. I
started on YouTube, and then Keek, and Keek is where I started creating content with my iPhone.
What kind of content were you producing? Was it like
just little like funny, like daily vlog skits, a little bit, making fun of things like my.
You have a great sense of humor. Do a lot of people know that? She's like, we all do that, right?
No, what's so funny is that like my sense of people really think I'm super funny, but I'm just being myself. Yeah, like
isn't that the best
when
way,
I'm
though?
uncomfortable? Yes, it is. When I'm uncomfortable or when I'm like trying to meet new people, my sense of humor is like my way of like defending myself, if that makes sense. So or like kind of like introducing myself to people, being warm, being friendly. There you go, exactly. Okay. Because what a lot of people don't know is, even though I'm funny, they don't know I'm introverted.
And that's the thing. I got more of your introverted side because you don't have a lot of content on Instagram, and that's where I am predominantly.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to see like how outgoing you are in your content. You know, like how how Beyonce talks about her alter ego, Sasha Fierce.
I love her.
Yeah. And so I feel like you also have like a different side of you that's like super energetic and very outgoing. But mashallah, you're also soft-spoken, very strong, by the way.
Thank you.
But I can see the introverted side of you as well. And so I just wanted to know, like, how has that been on social media?
Social media? Okay, so any introvert will tell you what we love is being on social. I love being on the comfort of my couch, making videos, or being by myself doing things. But as soon as I get into a room or a big event where there's a lot of people and I have to pull out a camera, or if other people ask me, there's been people that have asked me like, hey, Maryan, oh my God, can we take pictures together? Oh my God, are you Maryan from so-and-so? Wherever they see me.
So you get recognized in public?
I get recognized back home, in Minnesota a lot. But the thing, or even when I was within a smaller community, I'll get recognized. And for me, I was not used to that.
Isn't that interesting? Do you like tell me
I don't
like
that?
Like walk me through like an example of like how that interaction typically goes for you when someone recognizes you.
Yes. What usually happen is like, well, what used to happen before I kind of took a little break, because I want to tell you about that break and how I got into tech. It helped me. But what happened is like don't get me wrong, I love meeting new people. I'm an introvert that loves people, but it's just one of those things where like they just treat you like you're a Beyonce. I know I'm not the queen. I know I'm not. I didn't say that. But they just treat you at a pedestal where you just want to kind of be normal. Yeah. Like, I am really normal. Like, I'm super normal. But for them, even me coming back on TikTok, everybody reminds me, like, you're that girl from Vine. Oh, my God. I'm like,
so they kind of like put you in a box of how they see you on social media,
and they'll never see me for being that that tech girl, that straight A girl, that girl that graduated college. Like, they don't see none of that. It's that funny girl. I'm like, yeah.
You know what? Speaking of that, I can relate because on social media, I also had a lot of success with like funnier content.
Yes.
And I can say that I started to regret people thinking of me as the funny girl.
Nobody wants to take you serious.
Yeah. I felt like I had so much more to offer. And it was really annoying for people to be like, oh, make more of your funny content. Make more content with your husband. Yeah. Make me laugh. Tell me a joke. It's things that to your point 100%, like, no, we're not Beyonce by any means, but it is a little bit like
scary.
It's an interesting feeling when you're in public or you're in a space where you think you don't know other people, but other people walk up to you like they know you.
Yep.
And alhamdulillah, a lot of people are usually super, super sweet, but especially if you're by yourself, sometimes it could be a little bit jarring.
Or here's the part for me where I had to really take a break for myself. They will, it's not all, but some people really think they know you to the level of like you're their family member, and then want you to touch on topics that you just don't really want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because let's just be honest, like why I even took a break from social media was because some of the stuff I was making, the little TikTok, I mean, the little vines or funny sketches, whether I talked about like white people or Somali people, like, I made fun of like my culture, being born in America, being raised as Somali. It was so interesting, and being Muslim. So that can make other people uncomfortable that don't get
100%.
it. So I'm thinking in my mind, Susan from HR might see this because I have my whole full name, full government on here.
I did the same thing.
Because I was stupid. Like, why did I do that?
I don't know why I did that. I also, a part of me wishes that I probably, I would have done something different with my name.
Like Hustle and Hughes being your full name.
Yeah. So when you first got on like Vine and stuff, like how big was your audience at like the peak of Vine and Keek and all these other platforms?
I was probably, even though my following was like about maybe 50K, it was when it was connected to Twitter. So I would see the analytics of my videos when I would share it to Twitter, and I would see stuff like 5 million views.
That's crazy.
Seeing that, and then my Snapchat, don't get me started on the Snapchat. Seeing the Snapchat little icon, the eye say 60,000 views. Till this day, I cannot believe I was that girl.
Wow.
I can't believe I was that girl.
Because there's numbers on the screen. Like, it's hard to like wrap your brain around it.
It makes sense why the algorithm does this thing now. Because no shade, but like, I don't want that many people watching me.
Yeah, it's like I did this to be funny for like my friends, and then it's like kind of goes viral. Because
again, and maybe this is self-sabotage. Tell me if it is. But I just felt like at that time, 2014, 2015, 2016, there was no way you could express yourself individuality-wise and be like accepted by society, and especially where I grew up. Maybe if I grew up like somewhere open like Texas where nobody cares like what you do, like they're just, let you do what you want to do, or New York or a bigger place like LA, it's different. But somewhere like Minnesota, which is, even though they don't like to say that they're very conservative, very family oriented, everybody has the same personality. I know. I'm from Minnesota. I'm repping it. But we got to be honest. Like, Minnesota has a reputation of very, like, you have to be following the pack. If you even think you step out, it's a wrap for you.
What was it like growing up in Minnesota?
It was interesting. Yeah. Because I was one of those girls where, like, being the oldest in my family, and we talked about this a little bit. I went to an Islamic charter school. And one thing I always had a hard time with adults especially, was like how I could express myself and my needs without it being denied. So like,
or being perceived as disrespectful.
There you go.
Do you think it's a cultural thing, or was it just like that school thing? Or
I think it's a cultural thing and environmental, because I realized it wasn't just with Somali community or the Muslim community. It even happened when I was in public school. I would get in trouble. Like, I have this thing, and like I'm very humble. I always try to keep myself grounded.
Even in the conversations that we've had so far, I'm like, wow, she really like very, very humble.
I always try to check myself, ground myself. But one thing I will tell you is I have an addicting personality. And people, one thing they know about me is like, I'm very influential without even trying to be. So that's what I got in trouble for a lot of times. It was like, you're going to inspire all the other kids to do this. And I'm like,
if they follow, what am I supposed to do?
I'll be quiet and they'll do something and I'll get in trouble. I'm like, that's not fair. That happened to me back home, like in the house, like your siblings are following you.
You know what? That's such an interesting thing, because especially as the oldest girl, I feel like so many times I would be responsible for things that my siblings did just by being the oldest. So like, I think my mom and my dad would say like, they're watching you, they're going to do what you do. And it's like, but
that's exactly
why am I responsible for their actions? Because all of us are our own individual person. So it sounds like that wasn't just at home for you. It was also in
everywhere. And that kind of still traumatized me as I got older. Because like, I'll tell you why it traumatized me. I always felt like I had a chip on my shoulder where I had to set an example. Even till this day now, which is why I got into corporate America, like made sure I had got good grades in college, made sure I could give back to the youth, people younger than me, tell them the tips. I don't know. I just have a thing about me where I always want to help. Like, I wish somebody could have stopped me and been like, don't do that. Follow this lane right here. You got to do this. You got to do that. I would have listened in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But because I had to figure it out, that's why the little chip on my shoulder tells me, be great so that you can, teach somebody that was in your shoes, that's younger, that doesn't know anything, find the way as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So there was like pressure on you not only to perform, but an expectation that you'll kind of lead the path for others.
Exactly.
And that, like, did you ever feel like resentment for that, of having that responsibility and that burden even from such a young age?
I mean, from a family perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I felt like with my family, which I love so much, it makes me feel like, and even though the responsibility isn't really like, it's like one of those things where they don't see it, but they also don't like congratulate it, if that makes sense.
What do you mean?
Like, let's say, for example, like in my, I wouldn't say even just in my family, but I would say mostly maybe in my community, you're more, attention is brought onto you when you do bad things. So if I was like the girl that drank and went to jail, I would get all the attention in the world. But if I'm graduating, doing great things, it's like, oh yeah, she did that. She's supposed to do that.
It's kind of like,
it's so messed up.
Yeah, I definitely can relate, because I know like sometimes I would bring home like an A, and I think you see like these videos on Instagram too, and my dad's like, well, where's the plus? Why not A plus?
Yeah, A plus.
Where did you know what I mean? It's like, oh, because you're watching TV, because that's the reason why.
Yeah.
So it feels like I can understand what you're saying now in terms of there's not a lot of recognition given when you're doing the right thing
because you're told you're supposed to.
But my God, if you violate someone's expectations of what they think you should be doing, then there's going to be hell to pay.
Exactly.
So it sounds like you had some of that experience as well.
Exactly. And the double standard, like, I'm so happy I didn't have brothers growing up. Like, I was raised around women most of my life, and my mom's side is mostly women. But I have friends that had brothers. They could literally like graduate college and it's like the biggest deal in the world, because it is like you rarely see brothers
they're
graduating.
Celebrated a little bit differently.
Like, it's like the minimum, there's such bare minimum for men, for boys to graduate or to do little things, like where the girls, for us, that's not a really small thing, that's a big deal to us, but we wouldn't get the same
accolades,
applause.
Yeah,
and I'm only speaking from my experience again, because I just know that somebody out there will probably relate to it. But it is really hard to have that expectation that you have for yourself, but you're also trying to beat the ones you have for your parents.
Yeah.
Like being the first to do everything, which we were going to talk about. Being the first to graduate, being the first to have a good, like, 9-to-5 job, for example. Being the first to break so many stereotypes and, barriers. Like, it is exhausting. I wish somebody else could have done it.
Yeah. I think it is like a very lonely road. And we've talked about this. I've talked about this a lot on social media in terms of how unique being the oldest girl is when it comes to like not only responsibility, but it fundamentally changes like your relationship. At least in my experience, I know that there's others who can relate with anxiety and people pleasing and difficulty setting boundaries and not being able to tell people no.
Yep.
So I totally understand where you're coming from there. And it was really difficult, to be honest, at least for me, to at some point, I think when I graduated school, I was really burnt out from trying to please like my family and my parents. I felt like no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough and someone was always disappointed.
Yeah.
And I think that others had like a very rigid expectation of like what I should and shouldn't be doing, kind of like what you said with my life.
Yep.
And I really wanted to do business. I think, my dad's a chiropractor. And so I think initially when I was younger, the expectation was like I was also going to be a doctor as well.
Yep.
And I realized that I didn't like love the idea of being in a hospital 24/7.
Me
like
too.
It was boring. I was I want to have like not fun, but like I wanted to be in a more engaging environment.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably like one of the first heartbreaks of me growing up.
Yeah.
And then at some point I decided to go into business. And I remember having that conversation with my dad and him being like devastated. Like, what do you mean you're not going to be a doctor? Like, you're so smart and all this other stuff. And then I decided I wanted to do business. And I remember not even just from my family, but also like I had bosses and stuff like that tell me, as a Muslim woman, maybe you should consider doing something else. Like, I don't think you're cut out for this. Right.
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Alhamdulillah, I think it made me stronger for sure. And it was definitely a character building moment.
Yeah.
But I can understand in terms of like having to carve your own path. And I think even as the oldest, I did also move away from home in order to set like some boundaries for myself and to be healthier, right?
Yeah.
We had talked, before the podcast about like therapy and going to counseling.
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started with therapy and what your experience has been with it?
I started therapy before it was a buzzword, before people thought it was like something to
like
do.
a trendy before BetterHelp.
Yeah, before BetterHelp. Oh my gosh, BetterHelp. I hope we get it after this.
Right.
But for real, like I started when I was 18
Mm-hmm.
and 17, 18, and it was in high school. And
What made you go at that point?
it was almost like I didn't have a choice.
Okay.
Because I was getting in trouble at school for like really minute things, like very small things, like running and marking somebody. I mean, I had a lot of energy. During like Spirit Week, like we would wear different colors, and every class would wear a different color. I remember one time I got suspended for marking somebody with red. I was a junior, and they were younger than me. I think sophomores wore blue. And I was just being a little bit, mischievous during lunchtime. But there's one lady that was always on to me. It didn't matter what I was doing.
She was always gunning for you.
Always. Her name is Miss Hawkins. And I can't wait.
She's like, if I ever see you, it's on site.
It's on site because let me tell you something. Sis, I am going to come back this year for the 10-year anniversary. And I will be pulling up in the Land Rover. And I'm going to make sure to give all my favorite teachers some money and flowers, and I'm gonna look at her and be like, what's up? Remember you told me I'm gonna be in jail?
You know what, Steve Harvey? Wait, they told you you're gonna be in jail?
She told me I was gonna be in jail one day for how I'm moving. I'm like, why would you ever say that?
That's crazy.
I don't even have no family in jail. Like, she was just so mean.
Yeah, I definitely think that a lot of people can relate to having like a hater or someone in their youth, and maybe even as an adult.
Like, it was an adult that was a hater of a child. Like,
isn't that weird?
That is so like bored behavior. That's what I call it. Bored behavior.
Yeah.
Why are you hitting on a baby?
Yeah. And I think it's it also takes a really strong individual not to internalize those messages.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think through therapy, at least I've learned that when people project, it has nothing to do with you.
Yes.
It's not about you at all. It's about how
it feels like it though.
It does. It can definitely feel like threatening or jarring for sure. But usually it's about their own insecurities, their own trauma, their own, but when you're that young and you haven't actually been through to therapy, it can be really difficult to not internalize those messages that we get from adults who are suffering themselves.
Yeah. That's the word right there, suffering. And so what I did was when I was in therapy, I talked to this lady named Donna Evans. She was like a elderly Black woman who was also the first daughter in her family. I really, really loved talking to her.
Was she like a therapist or just like
she was a school therapist.
Okay,
she came once a week, and she just got me. She was the first person I'll say that really understood me. Like, didn't judge me. I could just tell her how I was feeling, what I was going through, and she worked to help me unpack all of that. And also give me solutions to how to deal with, people like Miss Hawkins or people like, my mom that misunderstood me at home because she's upset, like, why are you getting suspended? And I'm like, because I have somebody that bullies me at school and it's not even a child, it's freaking adult. Like, she follows everything I do. I could be skipping class. I got suspended.
It's so interesting because I definitely remember that when I was younger, there wasn't a lot of space to feel attacked by adults. Like in the sense of if I went home and tried to say this adult made me feel some kind of way, that wasn't really reciprocated. I think like the first question would be like, well, what did you do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of like understanding and validating my emotions, even if they were misplaced, even if they were well-meaning adults who were trying to help me, but it really felt unsafe.
Yeah. I was going to tell you, I told my mom about that now. And
recently?
Like as an adult, like
what did
grown
you tell
now.
What did you
I
tell
told her about how, I had mean adults in my upbringing at the Islamic school and at the public school. How come you didn't do anything about it? And I understood, why at first, because, she was a single mom as well, and she had to work, and she couldn't really fully be there and understand what was going on in school because she was the only parent also making money.
Yeah.
But when I told her, she was like, I wish you would have told me. I would have done something about it. I'm like,
How does your adult self respond to your mom saying that now?
Well, I
Like,
feel
do you
like
believe her? Do you feel like you could have said it
I
then?
feel like because my mom also had me at a young age, she had me at 17, 18. She got married very young when she came here. I feel like I believe her because back then she was growing up with us. She's
Mm,
like, I'm 28 now. So back then she was probably like early 30s dealing with a teenager. You know,
mm-hmm.
it's not easy having teenagers. And
Yeah.
me and my siblings were close in age. So now that she's a little older and wiser, right? I feel like she actually would have probably skipped work to come and give two piece of her mind to the adults that were giving me a hard time.
Yeah.
But that's all I've ever wanted, Afnan. I wanted somebody to just defend me. And
Yeah.
therapy gave me that assurance that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't, that I'm not alone, that I'm not, like I was being gaslit at home
Mm-hmm.
or in school or even at work.
Yeah.
And I kept doing it until the pandemic was kind of a little weird to do therapy because it was just hard to see somebody in person.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been doing therapy for the last, like, I'll tell you, 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, and it changed me. That's really what helped me become a better person, be more clear. It gives you solutions. You feel like you can be able to, you just feel like a sigh of relief. Like all of the tension you had on your chest is gone. Like
Yeah.
once you talk to somebody about it.
What was like the biggest thing that you learned from therapy? Like, I know you said it was like a safe place for you to kind of express yourself when you're younger. I
Mhm.
think for me, therapy gave me really good language to understand
Yeah.
how I feel, why it's rational for me to feel the way that I feel. I think, also understanding why is it that I perceive these things as attacks, even though they may not be, or
Yeah.
why am I afraid of this when, when somebody else may not be afraid, or just kind of understanding some of those concepts. Like, what did you walk away with from
What I
therapy
walk
if
away.
you had to?
I would agree with you. The language, especially now when I'm about to go back to therapy again, I need to learn the language around like how to support myself and protect myself in corporate America
Mm.
because
Ooh, girl.
I have not done that yet. I need to find a therapist that understands what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that's one thing I want to tell you too. A lot of people think they could just go to anybody. No, you have to. Therapy is kind of like dating. Like you have to
A
kind of talk to.
100%.
Yeah.
You said earlier that your first therapist was a black lady, an older black lady. I've said in public before, my favorite type of therapist is a black woman
Yeah.
who's very devout Christian, at least 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
She has all the wisdom of
Yep.
like your auntie, but like a lovingness, at least in my case, as like a mother.
Yep.
Right. And she's been there, she's done that. She's,
Like a mother. That's the key word.
exactly.
Yep.
And that has transformed me. But also, I mean, even as a Muslim woman, they don't have to be the same religion, I
Yeah.
think. But for me, having a woman who is Christian understands how faith plays into my life.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
And so is there like a type of therapist that you like?
I'm the same way, but more related to the race part. I want
Okay.
a black woman as
Yeah.
my therapist because, especially a black American woman
Mm-hmm.
that understands the American system. Like what I mean by American system, like being raised and born and brought up here generations.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like a lot of times as children of immigrants, we're just really swimming. We're like not toddlers, guppies. Like we're trying to figure things out. We're trying to grow, but at the
Living in
same
these like two
time,
worlds.
you're
Yeah.
in that same bubble.
Mhm.
And a lot of like back home in Minnesota, people don't want to escape that bubble. They just want to stay comfortable in that bubble, be within that bubble. That's it. This bubble has saved me. It's the only thing I know because
Mhm.
that's what their big parents taught them.
Yes.
But for me, therapy, talking to a black woman has really helped me see things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's been also like a mother, the type of I don't want to call it coddling because I know that has a negative connotation, but like nurturing.
Nurturing. I
I
love
get a
that.
nurturing vibe from them where they really look at me like I'm their daughter and want the best.
Yes.
Like Miss Donna, she straight up told me like, don't do this, don't do that. Like, stay away from boys, like focus on your school. Like I felt like I didn't get that from my mom back home.
Mm.
Because my mom, she was just working.
She was just trying to
didn't
help you
have
guys
time.
survive.
She was
Yeah.
surviving.
Yeah.
And also in our culture, like Islam culture, the religion, but also within the culture of wherever you're from, like in Islam,
Yeah.
we don't talk about things like sex or things like, how to protect yourself as a woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Other than just put on a hijab. Like,
Yeah.
no, there's more than that when it comes to modesty. How else can you protect yourself? We're in a non-Muslim country, and anything could happen to you. And that's why a lot of times, even having these conversations, it gets hard because there's a big disconnect between children that grew up like diaspora that are kind of a little bit, they'll say, oh, that child is, they've swam away from the shore, or like they're gone,
They're
I'm
lost
like,
causes.
they're
Yeah.
lost because of you guys. Like, you're very, very hard in terms of like, you use the deen to weaponize your child. That's not okay. Like, you shouldn't be able to, like, I went to Islamic school and I remember just wearing pants, I got suspended.
Yeah.
I wish I had my dad so I could be like, that guy did that to me. Like, he suspended me and he told me I couldn't wear pants, while that Syrian girl at the same school didn't wear hijab, got to wear pants. It's like things like that. And that's why I like talking to the Black woman as a therapist, because she understands me. She understands the misogyny in our culture. She understands also faith, like you were mentioning before, and also work and how to navigate being the only one in a lot of spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot. I know.
I agree with you 100%. I think that unfortunately in a lot of, and I don't even want to say it's just Islam. I think in a lot of very orthodox areas, cultures, etc., there's not a lot of space there's some instances where there's not a lot of space for a different perspective or a different alternative or a different experience. And I think that it can be really suffocating not to have, especially in that developmental time of your life where you don't have adults that you feel safe with, who can guide you, because there is a point where you figure things out on your own, and sometimes with really grave consequences.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, no matter what religion you practice, right, or how godly you are, there is some such thing as like sex education. There is awareness that needs to be happening when it comes to, consuming alcohol or drugs or being responsible or time management. These are all skills that, regardless of your religion, you should be educated about in a safe environment to get accurate information, even as far as like women's health. Like, I have some Muslim friends who their parents would not allow them to go get like any type of checkup, right? Because if they weren't married, then they didn't need to be going to like an OBGYN or whatever the case may be. Which to some extent, like I can understand that to a certain extent, but when it comes to health, I think there should be confidence for women to, get accurate information, but then also to be, because not everybody gets married immediately,
Absolutely.
right? A lot of women are spending a good portion of their 20s, sometimes into their 30s or 40s, where she's like me.
Yep, me.
And they're not married, and they need to know how to navigate these conversations. They need those skills. They need this information. And it's really unfortunate that sometimes we feel, and it's our reality, that we can't go to our parents and we're having to go elsewhere.
Also, to add to that, sometimes we feel so restricted and I guess I should say suffocated, that our parents is the only things we know. Like, I know so many people till this day right now, circles of friends, that they cannot operate without their mom or their dad knowing what they're doing. Like, you really have to inform
ask
ask permission or tell your parents what you're doing. Like, my mom, I'm sure she would probably love love me to fill her in every detail aspect of my life and what I'm doing.
Parents like that.
But my mom also now respects my privacy, and she knows, like, as long as I keep her up to date of what I'm thinking. Like, hey mom, I'm thinking about moving to Texas. I'm gonna go check out a few places.
Giving her a heads up.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Hearing her thoughts, even if I don't agree with it, just so that she could feel comfortable, like, oh, that's my little girl.
It's so funny. My dad and I had this conversation several years ago, and he talked to me about how he perceives me respecting him as keeping him informed of what I'm thinking. And I remember I used to think that was so interesting. I was like, but I haven't actually done anything. Like, I was thinking about moving to Atlanta, and I did consult with him and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. But he was upset that I hadn't told him when I first was thinking about moving. And I was like, but I didn't do anything yet. He's like, but no, it's a matter of respect. And it's funny that I think it's part of like the cultural thing where they perceive that to be
I guess
respectful.
what he's upset with is you've already set your mind to it and you told him like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, but you've already
But you know what? I didn't look at any apartments yet. I
yeah,
hadn't gone down
okay,
there
then I
yet.
don't know.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
feel like our parents are weird low key, honestly.
yeah.
And I also think it's because when they were younger, at least in my family, there was no like autonomy to like make those type of decisions by yourself. Like
100%.
who do you think you are to even be considering moving away from your family and you're not married or whatever the case may be?
Absolutely. And that's what I get a
Yeah.
lot, but I don't care. So like what you were saying earlier on like how my introversion like helps me, I just want to share like it helps me by really being like being having that space to think on my own before I
Mhm.
make a big decision. And like you were saying, you moved out early. You started to give yourself like that distance so that you can grow and make the mistakes or learn from, you
100%.
know,
To
that's the same
heal.
thing I've done. Yeah, to heal. I just moved out when I was 25.
Mhm.
So moving out has given me, and even though my mom's like 2 blocks away from me, it gave me the space and the room to think and to just try to be able to work also during the pandemic. I couldn't stand people just coming into my room. I'm
Mhm.
like, "Hello," and they're like, "You really need a hijab in the house?" I'm like, "I'm at work."
Yeah.
Like, you know? They're like they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You're at work? You're at
Virtual
home.
remote working. Yeah.
Yeah. So, having my own space really helped me out a lot.
Yeah. Did you always have the relationship where with your mom where she respected that space? Like, was it difficult for you when you moved out? Like, was there friction or did she kind
Mm,
of like support you?
She supported me because as the oldest, I always had my own room as
Mhm.
well. That's something that my siblings would always say, like, "You're the lucky one. You always had your own things. You had your own car
Mhm. It's
when you
like at
turned
what cost
16."
though, girl?
I'm
Listen,
like, "You don't know what it. Yeah, you
what
don't know
I've
what I've
been
been
through.
through." Exactly. But my mom, when I first moved out, I did that thing where you were telling your dad about you moving out. I gave her, even though I already had it all secured,
Mhm.
lease was
At least what
pending.
you tell her is
I
I'm
just wanted to
thinking
think.
about it.
That's
Yeah.
what I said to her.
Oh,
There's a
girl.
new building they built right across the street from. Uh, I live in downtown, so I said right across the street from X, Y, and Z. What are your thoughts about me moving out the end of the month? I think it'd be the best because it's right next to the train station, and I could go to work as soon as things open back up. And on top of that, I want to learn the responsibility of what it's like to be on my own, and like eventually, I won't be in Minnesota forever.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking? And I
What'd
could
she
show
say?
you. She was like, it's not a bad idea, I guess. Because she knew how hard it was to work from home inside my
Mhm.
house.
Mhm.
We always got into a fight, like, where are you going? It's a pandemic, there's things going on, da da. Da." I'm like, oh my God, I don't even have the space.
Yeah.
But now that I live alone, I don't even leave the house. Like
Yeah.
I just
You're a
stay. I'm
homebody.
such a homebody. So she believed in me, she trusted me,
That's good.
and even though I already had everything set up, I just wanted her to know I was
Keeping the
thinking about
peace.
it.
Listen, keeping the peace and knowing when to engage your family members or people that you care about is like a thing. And some people be like, "Oh, I would never jump through hoops like that with my parents." But I think for
Mhm.
us growing up the way that we did, it's the healthy way to maintain the relationship but also continue to do what you need to do.
Exactly.
Right. And I do think there's a unique group of us that understands and is
Mhm.
also willing to be the first to leave, right?
Yes.
Like I left and now I have younger, initially like I think I got criticized by some people in the family
Yeah.
of like, why are you leaving? Da, da, da. And now like my younger cousins, like they travel alone. I remember even when I went to college, there were some family members like, why are you going to go to school so far? Mind you, it was only a 2-hour drive for my
Mm.
mom. So I wasn't far, but it was like,
Mhm.
it was far enough you can't pop up, but close enough that if I really need to get home because of an emergency, I could get home.
Yeah.
And I remember up until that point, none of the girls had went away for school in my family. I think I'm like the third or the fourth girl out of like all of our cousins on my dad's side. And
Mhm.
now they're going overseas by themselves for the study
Wow.
abroad, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, subhanallah, our parents, change and they evolve as they get older.
They
But
do. Mhm.
but even as an adult, when I moved away,
Mhm.
feeling like initially not being understood of like, well, why are you moving and why are you
Yeah.
so rebellious and why do you feel like you need all this freedom?
Mhm.
It can be really, really challenging to find your own way, right? And
Yep.
so I am proud of you that you're
Thank you.
thinking about taking the next step
Yes.
and wanting
Appreciate it.
to kind of find like your own space. And considering Dallas, I think you're gonna love
Mhm.
Dallas. I think Dallas is awesome,
I
mashallah.
love it so far.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to tell you too, the importance of building a network of people that
Hmm.
are like minded, but I also want to stress, like, I know it sounds silly saying it, but building a network where you can really grow from, learn from. Like, for example, like just being able, the fact that you introduced me to so many people already while I've been here, the only 3 days, 4 days I've been here, everybody is so accomplished, mashallah, and I haven't even met them yet. So it's
You are
like,
super accomplished though too. I know
thank
you're
you,
humble,
sis.
but
But coming from where I'm from,
Mhm.
it's very hard to see people make it. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Very small town. Everybody does the same thing. And earlier you were saying like if you're not a nursing or if you're not a
Girl,
doctor,
my mom
kind of
wanted
like
me
a
to be a
failure.
nurse so bad.
My dad did too, and I would never. I hate blood.
I couldn't do it either. My sister loves, like, she talks about, she's in the medical field, and I don't know exactly what it is, her title is. She's about to go to PA school. I'm super proud of her. But
Hey.
she loves, like, when the ER, like, when she's doing her rounds and they come in with, like, bullet wounds. She thinks that's so cool. And I cannot take, a splinter out of somebody else's hand.
Wait, she thinks that it's cool to say bullet wound.
Yeah. They're very unique. So yeah, I wouldn't have made it in
I'm
the medical
shaking
field.
right now
I know,
inside.
right?
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. But I also wanted to, before you left, I wanted to talk about like how you got into tech.
Yeah.
Because I really, really, really love seeing multifaceted women.
Yeah.
Right? Like, especially being East African as well. You know, get you a girl who can do all of it. Like, she can conduct herself in the boardroom.
Absolutely.
She can have a career on social media. She's, I know Islam is very important to you. We've talked about like your spirituality and how much, your relationship with God has been important to you as you're navigating all of these really big changes.
Yeah.
And even just you making it out of the environment that you were.
Absolutely.
So can you share a little bit about how you got into tech and how it is now being a 9-to-5 tech hottie?
Yes, absolutely. How I got into tech was, so after I took that break from social media, it was in college. I was like it was my senior year almost of college. And I was like, Maryan, you really have to understand that like social media, we don't know where that's going to go. I wasn't getting paid for none of those videos. So every year in college, I had an internship and I was majoring in business marketing, and I ended up having a double major in HRD as well, human resource development.
What made you major in business?
Business? Oh yeah, I loved marketing from the very beginning.
Did you?
When I was in high school that I went to where it was like really bad environment, there's an organization called the Brand Lab that came into the school, and they gave me my first internship at Target, and it was a marketing internship.
I had an internship at Target.
Yes.
Yes, it was
Target.
Yes, I think my internship with Target was definitely like changed the trajectory of my career.
Absolutely.
Did you what was your internship? Did they do like training and development for you?
For me, it was at corporate.
Okay.
So Target is headquartered in Minneapolis.
Wow, so you got that exposure really young.
Very young, 18.
Wow,
Yeah.
mashallah.
I had the badge and everything.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to change my life. That's why I took them serious. While all the other kids were throwing paper balls and airplanes.
Joking around.
I was like, no, this is going to be a life changer. I don't know who told me. That's why Ilah is so important to me.
Yeah.
Because I could have just been like, I don't know what that's about. And it was only paying like $10 an hour. So I was like, I don't really know what this internship is about. Because we came in as contractors, even though we had all these companies sponsoring like the program and taking us in, right? While they have their own internship programs.
Yeah.
So Target was my first internship.
Wow.
Then ever since freshman year, junior year, or sophomore, junior year, senior year, freshman year I went to, what was it? Maybe I think it was Twin Cities Public Television, PBS, the Arthur, where Arthur comes on.
Yeah.
Then I went back to Target again, and I was doing their social media.
Ow.
I was tweeting.
Were you really? You were managing their Twitter account. That's
I had
amazing.
everything. If you go to Target, they follow me on Instagram because I followed myself on that account.
We love that.
I love how they've evolved because I gave them some tips before I left in 2017. I was like, you guys gotta start to flirt a little back with your audience. They want that connection. Be funny.
Yeah.
I see them doing that now. I'm like, good.
You started that, mashallah.
But I love what they're doing on TikTok too now and Twitter. But anywho, long story short, I was always in digital marketing. So doing that digital marketing kind of was like me flirting with tech. And then it wasn't until my junior year or almost my senior year, like before I started, that I got an internship as a UX digital engineer intern.
And for those who don't know, what's UX?
UX is user experience. So basically, I was Best Buy's very first UX intern.
Okay.
And Best Buy is also headquartered in Richfield,
I know
Minnesota.
You worked at Best Buy too, mashallah. You have all the big companies on your resume.
Thank you. We have Minnesota, alhamdulillah, even though as small as it is, We have a lot of big companies.
I didn't know that.
3M.
I knew about Target. I didn't know about Best Buy.
3M,
Mhm.
Target, Best Buy. This is
Wow,
not an
mashallah.
ad.
Yeah.
Cut the check. We have so many Hormel Foods, General Mills. So that cereal y'all
Yeah.
be eating, Post-it,
Yeah.
they're there.
Okay.
So, that Brand Lab
You had
really
all
opened
the-
my eyes to that.
Yeah. And that was like a program that was offered at your high school?
It was offered, they go to high schools, tried to get kids involved in marketing and advertising, getting
Wow.
a career in that. So I followed that footprint, and then Best Buy, basically, I found it on my own. I was a part of their first, like their cohort of interns that they had.
Wow.
That was nationwide. Then, and that's something else that they don't tell you. I want people to know, your audience. As a student, if you're a student in Florida, wherever, if you apply to intern at a company in Seattle, they'll fly you out that summer. They'll give you an apartment.
Mhm.
I didn't know that. So I'm looking around. I'm like, where you from? North Carolina. And where you staying? At Best Buy's free apartment?
Yeah.
So
And that was like 10 years ago, mashallah. Now.
Yeah.
And I also didn't know that. And I think exposure is so important. I have
Yep.
like a very similar story with Target, right? Like
Okay.
I grew up in Baltimore City.
Yep.
Like our high school doesn't even, exist anymore
Yeah.
because of how bad we were performing, right? They
Okay.
turned it into a police station.
Dang.
It was pretty bad, but I'm really grateful for that experience. But there was a program called College Bound. They offered like internships and things like that, which was
Yeah.
really cool. But that connection helped me get a full ride at school.
See?
And they also paid for college tours and things like that.
Yes.
And I just had enough wisdom to take advantage of everything that they were offering me.
Yes.
So I got a chance to go to different schools. We went all the way down to Florida to look at different universities. I got to tour HBCUs.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have had that perspective, because in my immediate environment, nobody else was really doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
My dad was overseas at this point, and so even though he's a doctor, like that wasn't the environment that I particularly grew up with.
Mhm.
And it was always those type of programs. There was a program in college called Trio, and
I know about Trio.
Trio was
I was
amazing.
I was in Trio.
Trio was amazing.
Mhm.
If I'm not mistaken, it's for first generation college
Yeah.
students.
Yeah.
And that helped me tremendously.
Absolutely.
And I think it was through there that I got my resume fixed and I
Yeah.
got all of that and interview prepped, and I learned about
Trio, they gave me my first MacBook basically because of the scholarship.
Yes, see,
Yeah.
and I didn't know about that till after I left. But yeah, there was people who got really great aid.
Yep.
And those programs really are life changing,
Yeah.
right? And they definitely started giving some of the fundamental building blocks to be able to eventually get a career in tech,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And corporate America. So I really
So-
appreciate those programs.
I was gonna tell you, what you said earlier about taking advantage of everything, all the opportunities that your way. That's basically what I did as well. How I got to tech was being able to just never say no. Like
Mhm.
you just never know. Like there's people that don't know anything, and it's okay. Nobody knows anything. That's why I'm so happy, like to just admit, like I don't know where this will take me,
Mhm.
but I'm willing to take a chance.
Being open minded,
Right.
Yeah.
So instead of saying no, you could have really blessed, like you could have pushed off a blessing or opportunity.
100%.
So when I got into UX, I never heard of it before. I was like,
Girl,
let me check it
Even
out.
when you were telling me about UX, like, and I work for a tech company, I was like,
Yeah.
what is it that you do?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have exposure. I didn't know anybody who did that
Yeah.
as a job.
Yep. UX basically is like the front line for engineers, if you think about it that way. We're responsible for design. Sometimes we have the actual designers, UX designers, create a web page, but my side of things is more of the data side and the analytics and putting together the end-to-end evaluation of an experience. So like drawing out like a customer journey map or a persona, helping build that.
Mhm.
It really goes hand in hand in product. And it took me a while to get into product. When I first graduated, I got into advertising,
Mhm.
but I still did. The funny thing about that is I still was in design in some way.
Mhm.
So my role, like for example, when I worked at Cole McVoy, which was an all full media and advertising agency, it was experience design strategist. So I still worked with clients like Target and Land O'Lakes. Land O'Lakes also headquartered in Minnesota.
Wow.
We worked with them to help build their website, and we're their agency partnered. And then they need designer, even though they have their own designers, they needed our team as well to help them build their end-to-end website, make it interactive, help with the promotion of it.
Mhm.
So then after advertising, I got into consulting, and I was not a good consultant. I was a CX and UX experience consultant, and It didn't last for too long because there's also consulting is similar to advertising, but there's also the language that I was missing, and they want you to be like active all day as a consultant. Like you cannot freaking sleep.
Yeah.
And I would tell my boss like, when
Work-life
can I
balance.
eat?
Yeah. Work-life balance is so important. And I think that it's a very easy trap to fall into at corporate. Were there any issues or any difficulties that you ran into considering your background or your experience going into
Girl,
corporate?
this could be a long, long story. Absolutely. One of the issues that I got into was my age being a factor.
Whew.
Yep.
They don't. Let me tell you,
hmm
being a young woman of color in corporate is like cutthroat as
Very.
hell because there I don't know what it is about the environment that doesn't seem like there's like an ageism thing of like,
There
oh, you
is.
must be like an idiot if you don't like, and God forbid you're pretty and you're also working in corporate America.
There you go.
And you're not blonde hair, blue eyes type
Yeah.
of a thing.
Yep.
What was your experience when you got there?
Well, mine is well, right now I'm not wearing hijab, but most of the time I'm always wearing hijab. And my experience was like really eye-opening because you got Susan that's kind of looking at you like you just graduated yesterday. You're like the same age as my kids. Like you don't know nothing.
Yeah.
And it sucks because you want to prove yourself. Like you know what you're doing. You know, because while I was in college, remember I started my first internship like my freshman
had really
year.
good experience.
So that's what they're confused about. They're confused. Like I want you to know, and this is me now stepping out of the humble realm to come to who I really am. I worked hard on purpose. I was excellent on purpose so that when I got to the point when I graduated, I didn't want nobody looking at me and being like, you can't do this. Because I had Miss Hawkins, the hater, that told me all the time, you're never going to make it. You can't do this. So when I got to corporate America and I had people kind of gatekeeping, resources. Oh, don't get me started on the gatekeepers. Like, I get why you're doing it. Job security. You're smart. You want to make sure you know the answers. You want to make sure people come to you for everything.
By gatekeeping, you mean like people who know information about how you can be successful.
Like documentation. Yeah. Like especially it's important for coders and people like engineering side. So that they don't mess up either. But like imagine somebody has a script that's already written out with full instructions, details on how to do something, but they don't want to give it to you, or they give you a messed up version, a version that has some X's on
like
it.
An intentional
sabotage. So that when you're slow and you're not getting your deliverables done on time, you get looked at like, it's the new girl, the young girl, the girl that doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm traumatized by. Why I got to go back to therapy because I'm not working right now and I love being unemployed, but I know. Alhamdulillah, one thing I want to tell you is when you get into different tech companies, your role is super important because it does determine your pay for the next job that you'll get.
Ooh,
but
we could have a whole episode on that by itself.
But I want to let you know what also, and it doesn't matter how long you're at these companies, so don't let the boomers lie to you and be like, you should be at these companies for at least for good 5 years, otherwise it's going to look like you're bouncing around. No, bounce around. Bounce around.
Bounce around will help you.
I'm a bouncer. Exactly. I'm a rabbit.
Yep. Because you honestly, you make the most money when you're bouncing like every, I would say like 12 to 18 months.
Exactly. And don't be afraid of getting laid off. I was laid off at this consulting job because I was bad at what I was doing. People liked me, but they didn't like the way I was delivering work, which is okay because I never was a consultant before. I'm great at sales, but when you don't have a good manager, it's really, really hard to perform.
Yeah.
Because she's always looking at you like, or he, like you're beneath them, but also like you cannot win, which it sucks.
They make their job. Team. They make their job more focused on finding your faults than developing you to actually.
And do you know why that is? Potential. Because it's bored behavior.
100%.
Yep. They want to make sure they can have someone to blame when they're not doing their job. You're my boss. I'm supposed to be learning from you. Why are you stupid? Like, come on, if I'm stupid, you're stupid. You hired me, stupid.
And it's also their responsibility. Like, good managers take the productivity of their team as a personal thing. Like, and they understand that when their team wins, they win. So I'm not your competition. It's in your best interest to develop me and to pour into me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to end on, or like at least share one more last point. The last shop I was at was a big tech company in Seattle. That was the first tech full software company I was at, and I loved it. It's called Smartsheet. My boss, she was really good, even though I also ended up like leaving that job. short notice. Like I just ended up leaving because it wasn't good for my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most money I ever made. Jumping from consultant to that, I made at least $100,000 more.
Wow.
Yep. And I wanted to say I never left Minnesota. I was still remote, and that job was all the way in a different state. And I got it through LinkedIn. I paid for LinkedIn Premium. They found me. That's the good thing about LinkedIn Premium.
People say that LinkedIn Premium is the hack. Like if you want to get a tech job, get the premium.
And pay for it. Yes, yeah. $30. It's so worth it. Cut the gym membership if you want. The gym membership will come. Means. Yeah, I know, right? It's not like I don't want to go anyways.
Right.
But no, for real. Work out at home. But for real, like I swear that's what helped me get there. And the connections are just as important. But if you don't have connections, you don't know where to start, LinkedIn Premium is your friend.
Yeah.
Because there's recruiters that want to get paid, that are sitting there on freaking LinkedIn all day. They have the setup. Their display looks so much different than yours. And you just put in the type of jobs you want, which locations, and they're going to reach out to you.
Yeah. I think when we were talking, you were sharing that it's important for you to tell others, like, don't be closed-minded about job opportunities. Like, look at remote, despite the news, a lot of these tech companies are still hiring.
Oh,
Amazon's still hiring.
Facebook,
Salesforce is still
all
hiring.
of them.
Microsoft, Google, every company that laid off is hiring for the right positions.
Absolutely.
Right?
They are.
And a lot of them, if you have confidence, that's something else that you said when we were talking privately, confidence will get you everywhere in these interviews.
Be
and
cocky.
there's good bags out here for remote jobs, unlimited PTO, good work-life balance, especially if you're considering doing something on the side, right? Like I believe even if you're making $200,000, $300,000 at your company, you should 100% be looking at doing some type of side work.
Absolutely. I highly recommend that. Be confident. Don't be afraid, because these companies are still outsourcing people. When I was at Target, I was telling you I was doing the whole social media thing. At night, the India team was taking care of that. So even at Best Buy, like the India team was doing a lot of things at night. And a lot of companies are outsourcing their work because somehow they cannot find people qualified to do the work. So that's how I know that there's jobs out there here.
100%.
So take advantage.
Yeah.
Take advantage of every opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
I know that you've got to go.
Yes.
But we have to do a part 2. I think there's even more gems that you can offer. So the next time you are in Dallas, please stop by. We'd love to have you again.
Anytime. You're so sweet. I really love being a part of your podcast and meeting you in person.
Hopefully you're not as nervous as when you first started.
No. I'm like so chill now. Like I feel like I maybe even overshared a little bit.
Not at all. This is like very family oriented. All of us are close, inshallah. But thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Where can people find you on TikTok, Instagram? What are your handles?
Yes. Everything is my name. MARYAN_GARANE, Maryan Garane. And that's TikTok, YouTube. I just started vlogging. I mean, I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone of not being on video for so long.
You're fearless in the boardroom. You're fearless with these career navigations. I'm sure you can do the YouTube thing.
Yes. Don't put your eggs on all one basket. That's one lesson I'm learning right now.
Absolutely. Be diversified. Well, thank you for coming.
I appreciate
Safe travels
you.
back to Minnesota.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yes.
Peace, guys.
Peace.